Hi, everybody. How are you guys doing? Did you have a good week last week? If either you or your child is struggling, get with us by phone or email. We want to walk you through your struggles and help you have a great school year. This week, we are going to be working through lessons 25 through 28. So let's get started. This week, you're going to need your lessons manual, the student worksheets, the math card games manual with the game cards, the abacus, a dry erase board, the place value cards, the base 10 cards, the base 10 picture cards, and you'll need 3 slips of paper with the numbers written on them. The numbers you need to write are 1,549, 2,735, and 3,817. This week, we are going to work heavily on place value and teaching foundational skills for carrying. Now, if you worked through level B last year, these lessons will be a bit of a review for you and your child. If this material is new or newer material, you're going to want to spend some extra time working on these lessons. These skills learned in these lessons are vital to your child's understanding of place value and carrying. Let's get started on lesson 25. This lesson will review and solidify place value. If your child struggles with this lesson, you may want to linger on it for a little bit. The next lessons will require the skills taught in this lesson. The warm-up section will review place value. You can let your child use the dry erase board as they're working through these problems. This is also foundational work for extended notation. So if you are interested or if your child is interested in doing some extra work and research on this topic, it might be a fun place to go. Under the section Reviewing Numbers to 99, your child is going to use the base 10 cards, the abacus, and the place value cards to build various numbers. Now make sure that when they are using the base 10 cards that they divide that each place value up into 2 columns, just like they do on the abacus. Under that first section, your child is going to build 86 on the base 10 cards, the abacus, and the place value cards. The next sections will add on to that number 86. So under that after the next section, it's called adding 1, you're going to add 1 to the 86 by adding the 1 base 10 card, adding 1 abacus bead, and then showing what that total is on the place value cards. Once that section has been completed and your child gets to 87 and understands how that works, then you're going to go back to the number 86 and you're going to do the next section, which is called adding 10. And here your child is going to add 10 to 86 by adding the base 10 cards, putting the 10 on the abacus, and then showing the final answer on the place value cards. Again, when your child gets that final answer of 96, they're going to go back to the number 86 and jump down to the next section that's called adding 100, and here they're going to add 100 to that number 86. After you complete these activities, you're going to play the game, Can You Find? You've played this game before, but it's been a little bit. We played it in lessons 3 and 4 if you want to take a look back. The quantities that you're going to need to have your child find is listed in the lessons manual. The other game that you're going to want to play for lesson 25 is called Corners Plus. And this game is played just like Corners, except whenever a player makes a corner, they get 1 extra point. And this will take the score off of the multiples of 5 and make it a little bit more challenging to keep the scores. All right, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 26. While this lesson looks like it's covering a completely different topic as we're working with greater than or less than or equal, comparing quantities, it actually uses these concepts to help your child evaluate place value. If you'll take a look at the warm-up section, your child is going to work through those warm-up questions as normal. They're very similar to the questions in lesson 25. Now take a look at the section called Comparing Numbers. In this section, you will teach your child how to evaluate and compare numbers. Then you're going to teach your child how to write the greater than and less than sign. And there is an explanation on the right side of that first page of the lesson that you might want to take a look at. It says this: the greater than and less than symbols were taught in level B by drawing 2 dots at the greater number and 1 dot at the lesser number, and then connecting those dots. Now, I have boys in my family, so I use the alligator concept. You may have done that when you were learning greater than and less than when you're in school. And the preface to it, the alligator method, I guess you can call it, is the alligator is really hungry and it's going to want to go after the bigger quantity. So if there are 3 on this side and 1 on this side, the alligator is going to want to eat up the larger side. But if I have 1 on this side and 3 on this side, the alligator is going to want to eat up that side. So it worked with my boys. Use whatever method works for your child. On the top of the second page of the lesson, you're going to see the section called Reading the Greater Than and Less Than Signs. And while some children are able to write the symbols pretty easily, they sometimes also then struggle telling them apart when they're just reading them or telling the difference between the greater than or less than signs. The activity in this section is really going to help that child see the difference. You will just need an index card or just a little slip of paper for that activity. If your child is active or you're using the alligator method, then you can have them use their hands to show the different signs. So when my child was looking at the worksheet and would have a number and then a circle, whether it's greater than or less than or equal, and then the other number, I would actually have my child put their hand on the page so that they were able to actively show if it's a greater than or less than, and then they were able to see that difference. In the middle of the second page of the lesson is where your child is really going to start using the greater than, less than to work on place value. Now, if your child is struggling to evaluate these place value problems, you may want to have them use side 2 of the abacus. You can also go ahead and get out the base 10 cards if your child resonates with that manipulative a little bit better. Once these activities have been completed, your child will work through the rest of worksheet 9, and they're just going to be filling in the greater than, less than, or equal symbols. There's a lot of problems there, so it looks like it's a lot, but really they're just putting in the greater than, less than, or equal symbols. There is not a game suggested for lesson 26, so you're going to want to pick a game to play for your child. Okay, well, let's turn to lesson 27. In this lesson is where you're going to need those 3 slips of paper showing the quantities of 1,549, 2,735, and 3,817. You are also going to need a math journal page, and if it's been a little bit since we've used the math journal pages, so if you've forgotten where they are, remember those pages are found in the back of your child's worksheet book. The warm-up section is foundational to this lesson and the next lesson. If your child struggles with answering these questions, you may want to spend a little bit of time reviewing lesson 25. After the warm-up, you're going to play through the game Addition War, which you've played previously. If you have a larger family and your other younger kids are coming in and playing along with your kids, I had 4 kids playing at the same time, you might want to consider playing the game A45 Addition War for 3 or 4 players, and that will help the game move a little bit more quickly. The rest of this lesson is working through the word problems as shown in the middle of the first page of lesson 27. Now feel free to change the name of the shepherds to your kids' names, or you can even change the sheep to an item that your child loves. Like in our home, my kids love horses, so we would have McKenna owning so many horses. We called this activity Bank, and my children absolutely loved it. And the reason why I called it Bank is if you look under the word problem, you'll see this phrase called, "You will be the banker." Which is where I got that name. Before we started this activity, I would actually pull out 10 $1 bills and a $1 $10 bill, because my kids, for whatever reason, actually all kids for whatever reason, they understand money really well. So I started there with the foundation, and I told them if I have 10 individual $1 bills, that's the same as one $10 bill. Right? And so I pulled them out and I showed my children, and of course they understand that. And they also wanted to keep the money, but I didn't let them do that. But it does provide a great foundation for this activity. Now, the first step is for you to go ahead and read the word problem, then have your child use the first slip of paper showing the 1,549 number. Then they are going to get the place value cards out and build that number. And then they're going to get the base 10 picture cards out to build that quantity. Now remember, your child needs to put those base 10 cards in 2 columns, right? So if they have 1,549 for the 9, they're going to have a 4 and a 5. Okay, once you finished the first number of 1,549, then you're going to go ahead and read the word problem again and give them the next slip of paper showing 2,735. Again, your child is going to pull the place value cards showing that number and then pull the base 10 cards for that quantity, adding those base 10 picture cards to the columns you've already built from the first number, 1,549. You're going to do the same thing for the third number, which is 3,817. Once all the base 10 picture cards have been put into those columns, you can say something like, it's time to go to the bank and make the trades, or now we can trade our quantities, or trade for the different place value numbers. Now your child will want to find 10 of one place value and ask for 1 of another place value. Now I did have my children specifically say what they had and what they were going to need. For example, my child needed to say, I have 10 ones that I would like to trade for 1 10. Now remember, having your child say something helps them retain what they are learning. Now, have your child continue trading until there are no trades left. By the way, take a look at the explanation in the middle of the second page of the lesson. I'm just going to read the first sentence of it. The order of trading is not important. Sometimes, because we're used to starting on the right side and moving left, if your child doesn't do that at this juncture of this activity, don't worry about that. Let them just trade. The goal of this is not to learn the process completely, but to understand why they are trading and when to trade. Now, toward the bottom of the second page of the lesson, you will see the final total, and you will see the follow-up questions under the sections called Summarize and In Conclusion. There is not a math card game listed for this lesson. So if your child struggled with understanding this lesson at all, go ahead and create your own smaller word problem and do another round of this activity. If your child did really well, then go ahead and play a math card game of your choice. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 28. Again, you're going to work through the warm-up section. And if your child still is struggling with it, spend a little bit more time creating problems similar to the ones in this warm-up section so your child has a better grasp on place value. You can have them use any manipulatives that you think might be helpful for them to get a better understanding of place value. This lesson will have a similar activity as what we did in lesson 27. The word problem is shown on worksheet 10, is also listed in the middle of your first page of the lesson. A little cool fact that you might want to explain to them is under the explanation section. My boys love this part. It says the 3 towns listed in this word problem are actually 3 ghost towns in South Dakota. So my kids kind of love that idea. Now, don't forget that when your child is laying down the base 10 picture cards, to have them label or lay them out in 2 columns, just like we do when we work on side 2 of the abacus. Consistency is very important. Once all the base 10 picture cards are laid out, if your child doesn't remember what to do next, you can remind them and say, okay, we can start trading, or you can say time to go to the bank, whatever will get them moving to the next step. If your child is still struggling on this activity, the concept of trading, working with base 10 cards, you're going to want to linger on this lesson. Spend the next day or 2 working on similar activities until your child gets it. And while this lesson looks like a really fun activity, and it really is, it is a vital concept, though, that your child needs to have and understand. If your child does not understand trading at this level, they're going to struggle even more so when they start carrying with actual numbers. I mentioned this last week, but after my children worked on these lessons and grasped the trading concept, my children automatically knew to carry when they went to pencil and paper with very little instruction from me. Take a look at the final explanation in lesson 28. It says, The act of explaining something is another step in the learning process. A child may know the answer to an equation, but explaining how they found the answer adds an additional layer to their understanding. So if your child is struggling with this concept, have them explain it to you. Help them tell you how this process works. And many times, once that happens, it clicks for them. Other times, you can see the gap in their understanding, and then you can explain it to them and you can fix that problem. Again, this lesson does not have a math card game listed, so you can either do another bank activity or you can choose a different math card game to play. That's it for the week. As always, if you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We are here to help. Have a fabulous week, and I look forward to seeing you next week when we go over lessons 29 through 32. Have a good day, everybody.